The past I buried. Before the money. Before the penthouse and the tailored suits, the silent drivers and private flights, there was her. Her name was Isabel. And I left her. Not because I stopped loving her, but because I was 22 and the world was calling me louder than her heartbeat. I thought I'd come back one day. But one day never came. And by the time I turned 30, I had everything I ever wanted. Except her. Except whatever we would have been. A feeling I couldn't name. It started a few months ago. That feeling, the quiet discomfort of being watched. First in the cafe near my office. Then outside a gala event. Then again outside my building. She was standing by the corner, pretending to scroll on her phone. Always the same girl. Mid-20s. Brown hair. Tall. Familiar in a way I couldn't place. I didn't confront her. Because something about her didn't feel threatening. It felt unfinished. The search. I used my resources. A man with money doesn't ask questions. He pays others to find answers. It took 3 days. Her name was Lily Moreau. No criminal record. College graduate. Working at an art museum downtown. Mother, Isabel Moreau. Deceased 2 years ago. No listed father. My blood ran cold. I stared at her birth date. She was born exactly 9 months after I left Isabel behind. And just like that, the world tilted. The realization. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed and replayed everything. The last time I saw Isabel. The look in her eyes when I said I was going to New York. The goodbye she never truly gave. And now this girl. Lily. My daughter. The daughter I never knew existed. I told myself a dozen excuses. That maybe it wasn't true. That maybe Isabel moved on quickly. But I knew. In my bones I knew. And I had to see her again. Not as the girl in the shadows. But as the woman she became. My daughter. The first move. I had no idea how to approach her. What do you say to someone who's the echo of everything you gave up? I waited outside the museum. I didn't hide. She noticed me. Our eyes met. She didn't run. She didn't speak. She just looked, braced. I took a breath and stepped closer. Lily? She didn't blink. You finally figured it out. My chest tightened. She knew. She had always known. And I had been late to the truth of my own life. The cafe table. We sat across from each other. Same cafe where I first noticed her. The silence between us wasn't awkward. It was loaded. She stirred her tea. I nursed black coffee. So, I said finally, how long have you known? She didn't look up. Since I was 16. Mom told me after her second surgery. My jaw clenched. Why didn't you say something sooner? She met my eyes. Would it have made a difference? I wanted to say yes. But I didn't. Because I didn't deserve to. The artifacts. She brought a box to our next meeting. Photos of Isabel. Old letters. One I wrote from a hostel in Prague. Another from the apartment I rented in Manhattan. Mom kept these, Lily said. She never hated you. Just never expected you back. My hands trembled holding the past. A version of me I barely remembered. And yet here it was, tangible. Real. Preserved in ink and silence. She always said, Lily whispered, if he ever knew, he'd want to be part of your life. I nodded. Voice tight. She was right. The agreement. The myth again. And again. Always in public. Always brief. Each time we shared more. Her childhood. Her love of art. My first apartment with no furniture. The mistakes. The wins. The loneliness beneath success. We never said the word, Dad. But it hovered. Between sips of coffee and memories exchanged like currency. Until finally she said, I don't want your money. I looked at her. I never thought you did. She smiled then. A small weary smile. I just want to know who you are. And if any of that is in me. And for the first time, I believe we might find out. The painting. She invited me to the museum one afternoon. Not for a tour. For a room. A quiet exhibit tucked behind the modernist wing, her curation. She stood beside a canvas. Large. Stark. Beautiful in a way that felt personal. It's called Absent Weight, she said. It's about gravity. And things that pull on us long after they're gone. I stood silently. I painted it, she added. And then, it's about you. I had no words. Only breath. And the swell of something like grief in my throat. The question. Why didn't you come back for her? She asked one day. We were walking near the river, early spring air still crisp. She loved you. I know she did. So why? I had rehearsed answers for years. But none felt honest now. I was scared, I said finally. Of failing. of not being enough, of watching her life go on without me. Lily didn't speak, but she didn't walk away either, which, for now, felt like forgiveness in progress. The frame. I gave her a photo. The only one I had of Isabel and me. Creased. Faded. Still glowing with the warmth of two people who believed in forever. She held it in her palms like something sacred. I didn't know she smiled like this, she whispered. She only did it with you, I said. And I meant it. The space between. There were still things we didn't say. Like why she waited 2 years after Isabel's death to find me. Or how many times she stood outside my world before stepping in. But some silences aren't avoidance. They're just rooms in a house not yet opened. And we were still learning how to live in the same house. The name. It happened over lunch. She asked about my childhood. I told her about the dog I had named Milton. She laughed genuinely. And then she said it. Dad, did you ever think you'd have someone who laughed at your dumb stories again? I froze. She hadn't said it before. Not once. I looked at her. No, I said. But I never stopped wanting it. And in that moment something shifted. Not suddenly, but entirely. The rain. It rained the next time we met. She waited outside the cafe, hair damp, coat too thin. I offered my umbrella. She shook her head. I like the feeling. Makes things feel real. We sat near the window, watching the water blur the street. Did you ever wonder what kind of person I was becoming? She asked. Every day, I said. But I was too much of a coward to find out. She nodded. I wasn't ready to be found either. Sometimes two people circle the same pain from different directions. And on rainy days they finally meet. The letter. She handed me a folded page. Yellowed. Creased. It was in Isabel's handwriting. If he ever comes back, tell him he has a good heart. Even if he never learned how to show it. I pressed the page to my chest. She wrote this a month before she died, Lily said. She believed you'd come back one day. I swallowed the ache. I wish she could see this. Us. She does, Lily whispered. The silence we needed. There were days we didn't speak. Texts unanswered. Calls missed. Visits skipped. But I didn't panic. And she didn't vanish. Because now we both understood, healing isn't linear. It comes in waves. And sometimes it rests. She sent me a photo one evening. A painting. New. Vivid. Hopeful. Captioned, getting better. Slowly. I replied, me too. The dinner? I invited her to my place. Cooked poorly. She laughed at my attempt. She brought wine. Set the table. We ate like we'd done it 1,000 times. Not as strangers. Not as guests. As family. She walked through the penthouse slowly. You built all this, she said. It felt empty until you walked in, I replied. She didn't answer. Just touched the frame on the mantel. The one with her mother's photo. And smiled. The window. She fell asleep on my couch one night. Book half open on her lap. Rain tapping the windows. I covered her with a blanket. Stood watching the skyline for a while. For years I thought I had everything. But none of it compared to this. The soft rhythm of her breath. The peace in her presence. And the quiet joy of no longer being alone. The portrait. She painted me. Didn't tell me she would. One afternoon she brought it in, a canvas half her height. I stared. It wasn't perfect, but it was true. Sharp around the edges. Soft in the eyes. Not the man I pretended to be. The one she saw. Do you like it? She asked. I don't deserve it, I said. She smiled. It's not about deserving. It's about being seen. The call? She called me after midnight. I answered immediately. I had a nightmare, she said. Tell me about it. She did. A dream of her mother, of me, of losing everything again. I listened until her voice steadied. Until her breathing softened. I'm scared you'll disappear again, she whispered. I won't, I promised. And for once I knew I could keep it. The bench again. We went back to the park. Same bench where we first truly faced each other. This time no fear. No hesitation. She brought sandwiches. I brought tea. We sat like old friends. Or like something deeper. Something earned. Birds pecked at crumbs between our feet. I used to sit here after Mom's appointments, she said. Did she talk about me much? I asked. She nodded. Enough to make me angry. Then curious. Then hopeful. I exhaled. And now? She smiled. Now I understand. The gallery night. Her work was selected for a private show. She invited me. I wore my best suit. She wore a blue dress that reminded me of Isabel. As guests admired her pieces, I stood at the back watching. Not the art. Her. Someone asked, "Is that your father?" She paused. Then said clearly, "Yes. That's my dad." I had to step outside for air. Because that moment, that word, meant more than every deal I'd ever closed. The silence before sleep. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing her voice in my head. "Yes. That's my dad." It echoed softer than applause but louder than anything I'd earned. I stood by the window, city lights blinking below, and realized I had never truly built anything I loved until now. Not the money. Not the towers. Her. The road trip. We drove upstate one weekend. Just us. No drivers. No assistants. No schedules. She made a playlist. I packed too much food. We argued about directions, about gas station snacks, about where to stop for coffee. But we laughed more. And somewhere between the small towns and wide skies, she fell asleep with her head against the window. And I let myself cry just a little, for all the years we missed. The memory box. She found it in Isabel's attic. A box with old sketches. School projects. Letters never mailed. One was addressed to me. She didn't open it. She handed it to me. "You should read it. When you're ready." Sat on my desk for a week. When I finally opened it, Isabel had written, "He'll come back one day. And when he does, remind him he was always enough." I clutched the letter to my chest and whispered, "I'm trying." The Sunday mornings. It became a ritual. Every Sunday. Same cafe. Same table by the window. Sometimes we talked. Sometimes we just sat. She'd bring new sketches. I'd bring old stories. One day she showed me a sketch of two figures on a bench. One was tall. One had tired eyes. Underneath she had written, "Becoming." And I understood. We weren't healed. But we were becoming. Together. The chair. She moved in one spring. Just temporarily, she said. But she brought her favorite chair. A worn green armchair she refused to give up. It sat across from mine in the living room. Mismatched. Perfect. Every night we'd sit and read. Or talk. Or not talk. I never asked when she'd leave. Because a part of me prayed she never would. The first Father's Day. I wasn't expecting anything. Didn't even remember the date. But she did. She made breakfast. Burned the toast. Spilled the juice. Then handed me a card. Inside it said, "You're still learning. But so am I. Happy Father's Day." It was the most valuable gift I'd ever received. Not because it was perfect, but because it was real. The photograph. She took my photo one evening without asking. Just me reading. Later she painted from it. Presented it to me framed. "I wanted to capture peace," she said. "I think I finally saw it in you." I stared at the canvas. A version of me I never knew existed. And maybe that's what she gave me. Not a second chance. But a mirror. One that showed who I could still be. With her. The birthday wish. She turned 27. I took her to her favorite restaurant, made the reservation under her mother's name, a quiet tribute. When the dessert came, she leaned across the table and whispered, "I wished for this for years. Just this. You sitting here." I didn't say anything. I just reached for her hand. And held it. The garden. We planted one behind the house. Her idea. Raised beds, wildflowers, tomatoes we never remembered to water. But we tried. And in the dirt, in the sun, in the quiet laughter between digging and planting, we made something grow. Not just the garden. Us. Something rooted. Alive. The nameplate. She came into my office one day, picked up a brass nameplate off my desk that read, C.O. Charles Bennett. She turned it over, placed it back down upside down. Then handed me a new one. It read, Dad. Simple. Clean. More accurate, she said. And I placed it on the desk. Left it there. Where it belonged. The ceremony. Her first solo show opened on a Thursday. White walls. Bright lights. A crowd full of critics and collectors. I stood in the back near the refreshments. Let her shine. People asked who I was. She answered before I could, "That's my dad." 3 words. Enough to level me. When she gave her speech, she looked right at me during the last line. For the man who showed up late, but stayed. I couldn't speak. Only smile. And feel something that felt like wholeness. The storm. We had our first real fight. Something small. About boundaries. About independence. But old wounds made it bigger. I raised my voice. She left. Slammed the door. I sat alone for hours. Wondering if this was it, again. But that night she came back. Sat on the steps. "I'm not running," she said. "I'm not letting you go," I replied. And just like that we moved forward. Not without bruises. But together. The year mark. 1 year since the first conversation. We didn't celebrate. We just lived the day. Coffee, breakfast, a walk. At sunset she said, "We're not broken anymore." And I said, "We never were. Just waiting." Sometimes time is a locksmith. And all you can do is wait for the key to turn. And when it does you walk through the door. Together. The visitor. An old friend of Isabel's came to town. She met Lily for coffee. Afterward Lily sat beside me and said, "She told me stories about you. The good ones." I nodded, unsure how to respond. She said Mom never stopped loving you, she added. I looked at her. And she said you never stopped loving her. I closed my eyes. Because sometimes the truth arrives too late to be useful, but not too late to matter. The scar. She found it on my shoulder one day. A long pale line. "What's this from?" "Motorcycle accident. Back when I was trying to outrun things." "Did it work?" she asked. "No," I said. But the pain reminded me I was alive. She ran her fingers gently over the scar. "Sometimes," she said, "we keep scars so we don't forget the cost of silence." The quiet night. We didn't talk that evening. Just sat in the garden. Tea in our hands. Stars above. She leaned her head on my shoulder. And I remembered every version of her I'd missed. The baby I never held. The toddler I never chased. The teenager I never grounded. But I had this night. This version of her. And it was enough. More than enough. I wrote to Isabel. Longhand. 3 pages. Told her everything she missed. Everything Lily had become. And everything I'd become by knowing her. I left the letter in the garden. Buried it beneath the wildflowers Lily had planted. Not because I believed Isabel would read it. But because some things are worth saying. Even when no one's there to answer.
Thank you for listening. If this story moved you, consider subscribing for more emotional, true-style stories like this one. Every week, we share new moments of heartbreak, healing, and the quiet strength behind second chances.